He had a name before they gave him a new one. Not the name you know him by, not the designation, not the chapter name, not the title earned across 3 centuries of war. The name his mother used, the one that fit in a mouth easily, the kind of name given to a child when the future still seems to hold ordinary things. A name for a boy who had a favorite place, a particular smell he associated with home. Some small private joy that was his and no one else's. He was 8 years old, maybe 10, maybe 12. They came for him. And what walks the galaxy now? 8 feet of ceramite and engineered biology, a mind that processes a battlefield the way you process a room, a body that absorbs wounds, that would kill 3 ordinary men and keeps moving, is not him. It never was. That is where this story begins. Not with the armor, not with the bolter, with the child, with the name no one recorded, with the morning he left and did not come back as himself. The Imperium prefers the word recruited. In many cases, this is technically accurate. The child volunteered. A parent offered him. The culture of his world understood the Astartes as the highest calling and the selection as an honor beyond measure. In none of those cases was the child old enough to know what he was consenting to. He came from somewhere specific. A hive city, a billion-person warren of industry and poverty, where a child who was fast and strong and didn't flinch when others bled might catch a particular kind of eye. A feral world, where tribes still fought with iron and bone, and the strongest boy in the village was already building a reputation that traveled. A civilized world, where recruiters moved through scolums, looking for the specific architecture of potential. He had a mother. Probably, he had something that constituted home. The trials that followed were not metaphors. They were designed to kill most of the children who attempted them, not through cruelty, though some of what happened was cruel by any standard, but because the transformation process requires a body and mind of extreme, specific quality. The trials find that quality by eliminating everything that doesn't have it. Most children die, not the ones who were toughest. The ones who were precisely tough enough, the specific genetic markers, the particular neurological architecture, the exact trauma response the apothecaries have spent 10,000 years learning to identify. The child who was slightly less exceptional also attempted the trials. He died in them. No one recorded his name either. The survivors arrived at the chapter monastery broken and exceptional in equal measure. They arrived as children. They would not leave as children. They would not leave as the people they were at all. The taking is real. It is also necessary. Those two facts do not resolve each other. There are 19 of them, 19 separate biological implants, installed in sequence over years, because the human body can only receive them in order, because each one prepares the ground for the next, because this is not a single act, but a slow and total rewriting of what a human body is. The secondary heart, a backup cardiovascular system. If the first fails, the second sustains him. Already, at the level of basic biology, he is becoming something that does not die the way you die. The os modula, his bones restructure, reinforce, become something closer to ceramite than calcium. Already, the body that could have belonged to a farmer, a father, an old man with grandchildren, is being replaced. The biscopy, engineered muscle growth beyond any ordinary human limit. The humistamin, altered blood chemistry. The Laramen's organ, his blood clots in open air in seconds. Wounds that would bleed any ordinary man to death seal themselves. The catalepsian node, half his brain rests, while the other half remains aware. He will never again sleep the way you sleep. He will never again dream the way a child dreams. The omophagia deserves particular attention. It allows a space marine to absorb memories and experience by consuming the flesh of a creature or person. The Imperium designed this for battlefield intelligence. Eat the enemy, learn his knowledge. It is also, by accident or intention, a biological metaphor for everything the process does. To consume something and make it part of yourself. To change irrevocably in the consuming. The Becher's gland, he can spit acid. The preomnor, he can digest almost anything. The multilung, He can breathe in environments that would choke you in seconds. And then, the last one, the 19th, the Black Carapace. It is inserted beneath the skin and bonds directly to the nervous system. Every record describes it as the most painful implant in the sequence, which is remarkable, given everything that came before it. It is also the one that completes the replacement. It makes the armor interface with his nervous system directly. It makes the ceramite feel like skin. It makes the armor his body. From the outside, this looks like the creation of a superhuman warrior. It is that. From the inside, it is something more specific. It is the systematic replacement, organ by organ, psychology by psychology, capacity by capacity, of everything that made him human, with something that serves the mission. The hypno-conditioning, running parallel to the physical transformation, doesn't leave scars you can see. It installs loyalty, obedience, purpose, the doctrines of the chapter, the litanies of the cult, until these things are not beliefs he holds, but structures he inhabits. The way you inhabit your nervous system, without choosing to. He does not lose the ability to feel. The stories that say Space Marines feel nothing are wrong, and importantly wrong. He feels, but what he feels has been shaped, channeled, given acceptable forms. The grief of a Space Marine is not the grief of a man who lost something he wanted. It is the grief of a being who has outlived everyone he was built alongside, and does not have language for what that costs him. 19 organs. And the 20th thing taken, the one not catalogued anywhere, is the future he might have had. The process is a marvel of 10,000 years of accumulated knowledge. It is also, viewed from the inside, a disappearance. The one love he is permitted. A Space Marine has no family. The home world, if it can be visited at all, is a place of recruitment, a resource, not a home. The parents who watched him leave are, from the chapter's perspective, biological context. They are not people his new life has room for. What he has instead is his brothers. And here it is important to be honest. The bond is real. The salamanders of Nocturne carry their care for humanity directly into their brotherhood. They do not merely fight alongside each other. They are bound with something that functions as love in every way that matters. The Space Wolves call each other pack because the word brother isn't sufficient for what it means when you have run beside someone through 3 centuries of war. Read what Grimaldus and his Templars do on Armageddon, not as military history, but as an account of men who would rather die than abandon one another, and who do die that way, and find it, in the moment, enough. The bond is genuine. In the world a Space Marine inhabits, it is the truest relationship available to him. That is precisely the problem. He is permitted one kind of love. He is permitted to love his chapter, his brothers, his mission. Everything outside that, every other form of attachment, tenderness, private loyalty, connection to someone who did not come out of the same process, is not forbidden so much as made structurally impossible. His life has no space for it. His conditioning does not make room. His existence is war, and preparation for war, and recovery from war, and then war again. He will never love a specific person in the ordinary way, impractically, without tactical justification, simply because she laughed a certain way, or he was kind to him once. He will never have a child who carries something of him forward. He will never sit at a table with people who knew him before any of this, and simply be known. What he has is his brothers. His brothers are extraordinary. His brothers are real. They are also the only ones he is allowed. There is a name for a love that is genuine, but permitted no alternatives. It is not a name that honors the people who feel it. The brotherhood is not compensation. It is the only space left after everything else was closed off, and it is full, and it is real, and it is not enough. What he cannot become. Most Space Marines die young enough. Young enough, in this context, means within a century or two, ancient by ordinary human measure, brief by what the transformation was theoretically capable of producing. His engineered biology could sustain him for thousands of years. Most of them don't get thousands of years, because the mathematics of a million battlefields provide their own answer, but some do. Chapter Masters. Dreadnought pilots, whose bodies failed long ago and whose consciousness now inhabits a walking sarcophagus of ceramite and iron, fighting wars they can no longer explain to anyone who wasn't there. First Company veterans, who remember campaigns so old the Imperium has classified the records. Consider what it means to be a being of that age and that construction. He remembers things that are no longer true. He remembers the Legion before it became the Chapter, an institution that no longer exists in the form he knew it. He remembers brothers who became traitors, faces he last saw across a battlefield, voices he is now required to hate. He remembers when it was briefly possible to believe the Imperium might be something different from what it became. He cannot retire. There is no retirement. He cannot lay down the weapon and walk into an ordinary life. His body alone makes that impossible. Never mind his mind. Never mind the centuries of war that have made him what he is. He cannot grow old the way old means something. He cannot become someone who was once a warrior but is now a gardener, a teacher, a grandfather. He is a warrior. That is not his role. It is what he is. The role and the self have, through sufficient time, become the same thing. The Blood Angels carry this more honestly than most lore acknowledges. The red thirst, the hunger that lives in their engineered blood, the echo of Sanguinius's own psychic wounds, is manageable for the young, for the old ones, for the ones who have bled long enough and lost enough brothers. The threshold becomes a question of what is left on the other side of the urge. The Black Rage is a kind of mercy, in the ugliest sense. It ends the accumulation. It provides a death with purpose. It is also a psychic wound 10,000 years old that no one knows how to heal, and no one has the political will to meaningfully try. A space marine is not permitted to be anything except what the process made him. The tragedy is not that this diminishes him. The tragedy is that we can see, in the space where everything else would have been, the outline of everything he might have chosen. He did not run out of time. He was never given time to begin with. Only mission, only war, only the slow accumulation of things he survived. The ones who broke. The Chaos Space Marines are not a story about evil. They are a story about what happens when you build a being entirely around purpose and loyalty, and then betray the loyalty and watch the purpose become the only thing left. The original Traitor Legions remember. This is what separates them from every other horror the 41st millennium contains. Sit with it. They remember. The Iron Warriors remember sieging the palace. The Word Bearers remember when the imperial truth was the law they served. The Emperor's children remember what it felt like to be the most disciplined warriors in the Imperium, before Fulgrim touched the sword, and everything became something else. They remember the Emperor, not as myth, not as a golden symbol on a distant throne, as a voice, as a presence, as the Father who made them and sent them out, and as they experienced it, abandoned them for a project he wouldn't explain, for a council of politicians who had never bled. They have had 10,000 years to feel that. 10,000 years is longer than most human civilizations have existed, spent in the eye of terror, fighting forever for causes that are no longer causes but habits, loyalties that are no longer loyalties but survival mechanisms, rage that passed the point of grief, so long ago it has become something harder to name. The World Eaters in the 41st millennium are barely coherent. The rage has eaten everything else, but in the 12th Legion, once, there were warriors who laughed, who had opinions about philosophy, who argued about tactics and told stories, and existed as more than the single purpose their conditioning had built them around. That is what 10,000 years of chaos does to a mind that was only ever given war and brotherhood, and then lost the brotherhood. The traitor is not a cautionary tale about choosing wrong. He is a cautionary tale about what is left when the only thing a being was ever allowed to love is gone. He is not different from the loyalist. He is the loyalist after the thing that held him together was taken away. Return to the child, not the warrior, not the chapter master with his centuries, not the dreadnought with his iron sarcophagus and his 10,000 years of memory, not the traitor in the eye of terror, still fighting a war that ended a millennium ago. The child. He was from somewhere. He had a name that fit in a mouth easily. He had a favorite thing, a game, a view, a particular food, some small private joy that was his and no one else's. He had the kind of curiosity that gets children into trouble, and had probably been in trouble, and there was probably someone who was both exasperated by this and privately glad he was the kind of child who pushed at things. He was taken. What replaced him has stood between humanity and extinction 1,000,000 times, has held ground that would have broken 10,000 ordinary men, has given everything the process equipped him to give, without hesitation, without complaint, without ever having been given the option of hesitation. He is magnificent. He is also gone, and in the village he came from, or the hive block, or the feral world, wherever it was, there was a sky he would have grown old under, a fire he would have sat beside, a version of himself that would have been slower and weaker and mortal in all the ordinary ways, and would have died, eventually, of something ordinary, surrounded by people who knew him across the whole span of his life. That person deserved more choices than he was ever given, not different ones, not instead, more, the kind that require a future long enough to hold them, a world small enough to belong to, a life with room for something other than the mission. He didn't get that. He got the mission, and the mission mattered, is still mattering, will matter, probably, until the last star burns out, or the darkness finally wins. The sacrifice is real. The achievement is real. Neither of those facts means the cost was not a cost, or that the boy who paid it knew what he was buying. To the child you were, before any of this, you deserved a chance to find out who you would have become if anyone had ever let you.